Hello, everybody. Hi, and welcome back to this YouTube channel, which now my content actually has a name, and it's basically like what I'm gonna call all of the general sports stuff is my teams my teams suck. Let's talk about it. Or my teams suck. Let's talk about it. The podcast. So that's what it's going to be. So from now on, it's going to be hello, everybody. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of My Team Sucks, the podcast. Um, because obviously, in reference to the how bad my Minnesota sports teams are, because no matter what, they build you up, they give you hope, they make you feel good, they make you feel nice and happy, and then they take it away, and they make your emotions go away, and they make you cry, and they make you sad because they can't win in the playoffs, and it's just misery and sadness and despair and all the jokes and all the like, oh, the Vikings are purple because they're choking all for it's 30 years and yeah, we know, we live it. Shush. At least we're loyal. At least I'll have people to lower me down into my grave because my God, my emotions can't get any lower. Anyways, sorry, tangent over. Today, uh, for a lot of you, because I'll be honest with you, I'm recording on the day of the uh, Kansas City and Detroit game, i.e., the first game of the year. So, no, I do not have any updates, and no, I did not watch anything. And I'm also prefacing this because you're going to see some stuff, and it's going to show, like, no stat line for them because they haven't played yet. So, just know that that is why. This is, like, literally, like, I'm recording this, like, 3 hours before kickoff. So, I'm going to talk to you guys about fantasy football. And now I'm not doing a primer. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because it's too late. You can't do it. You can't join any leagues right now. I mean, you can. There's some, but ultimately, for the most part, the leagues are pretty much filled because they had to have the drafts within the past week, so you can be in time for the kickoff because they're a year-long thing. But I wanted to talk to you guys about why fantasy. Why do people talk about fantasy football and fantasy sports in general so much? What is the joy of it? Because I have been asked a lot, like, what do you do? What do you find fun about it? What is like the enjoyment? And like, what is it? Because it is kind of like, for a lot of people, it's like, well, that's a really deep dive into something specific. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you think about it, it's no different than like any of the other nerdy stuff. Because let's be real, doing fantasy football, it's kind of nerdy. You have to nerd out. You have to know. You have to know a lot. You have to know all these players. You have to know who they're playing, what they're going up against, and all that stuff. So it is kind of nerdy. It is a different spectrum of nerdy. You got the fantasy dragons, Dungeons and Dragons, and like Lord of the Rings esque over here, and then you got football, and then you got like you can get nerdy in anything. Anything can be nerdy. Like cooking, whatever you want. I don't know why I'm making this motion for nerdisms. I don't know why. Leave me alone. But so the biggest one I do a lot of nerdy stuff. I play Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, I'm into comic books. I'm like, but I'm also really deep into sports, obviously. And one of the ways is through fantasy football. Now I'm going to explain briefly what there's like four. Well, there's three main ways that people play fantasy football, and obviously there's various other ways through like the various like booking apps like DraftKings, FanDuel's, Caesars, and all that stuff. Those are a lot more heavy in the sports betting side. So like, I don't really want to like. I'll cover it briefly, but it's not the what this specifically is. So kind of it's hard to explain. I'll get into it, but so first we're gonna start off with like what is fantasy football, because I don't think a lot of people know. Like if you're not in the sports world, obviously you don't know what fantasy football is, or at least you may know, you've heard people talk about it, but you don't know fully why or what. Anyways, so we'll start with this one. I have 4 leagues, but I can only show 3 because the other one isn't working on my web browser right now. So I'll talk about, there's 2. I'll start with two of them because they're basically the same. And that is like you're uh, just generic fantasy football draft. And so this one's on ESPN. We'll start on ESPN. So this is like my coming. Like actually, you know what? Hold on. I should start very simple. Let's go with I'm Death Star Destroyer because I'm also a nerd in Star Wars. So basically, what happens is you and your like 8 friends, 10 friends, or 12. Those are normally the like if you join because you can play for free, which is really nice. Like a lot of people don't. You can play for free. So I'm in a like this one's like my family league with like Julie's family league, and so there's 8 of us, and we all set a time to draft, and so now we like how we draft. So basically, what that means is you pick a day, you set up the draft, and you set up the rules for the year-long thing, and you so you get on the day of the draft and you draft your players. And what does that mean? Well, kind of like regular sports when they like draft rookies every year. You're drafting a team. Your team will last for the whole year in this league, the whole year. Well, and you have to manage it. You have to manage, starters and who's going to be on your bench and all that. I'll get into that. But so basically, you draft your players. So you draft from. For those of you who do know sports and who are watching this just to see how I'm doing, you could probably look at this and be like, man, that's a damn good team. Because you know what? It is a very dang good team. But so basically you draft your players, and with most of these standard ones, there's a standard of one quarterback, who's mine is Patrick Mahomes, 2 running backs, and 2 wide receivers, and then the tight end. And then now this one's a little different than the one I'm going to show you. The second one I show you is more standard, and I should start with that one, but whatever. ESPN is a more common app that people use. So this one's a little different because there's 2 flex spots. And what those flex spots mean is that it can be a running back, wide receiver, or tight end. And you can pick one of those 3 and put them in those 2 spots for additional points. Now, how do you get points? Well, so you get points based on it depends on the person or what their position is. So quarterbacks will get points for 1 point for every 25 yards thrown. And then for every touchdown, most leagues it's 4 points, like the standard. In this league, it's 6 points. And then you get... and then if they rush for a touchdown, like run it in instead of throwing it in, they get 6 more points. And they get a point for every 10 yards they rush. So that's how the quarterbacks get points. And then running backs, they get points the same way as the quarterback with the rushing, where every 10 yards they get a point, and every rushing touchdown they get 6 points. Now, they can also obviously catch the ball, and these rules apply basically for receiver too. Is that any receiving yards that they catch, like when they catch the ball and go 10 yards, that's a point. Every catch that they get is a point. And then every touchdown again is 6 points. And these are basically the standard rules. And that applies to pretty much to all of the other positions, or all the positions. The only position that gets an additional bonus really is quarterbacks because they get the throwing yards. And technically, I mean, there's some trick plays where wide receivers and running backs can throw. That's going to get confusing. So basically, breakdown, quarterbacks get points for throwing the ball, running, and all the touchdowns they score. Now, receivers and running backs get points from rushing, receiving, and catching the ball and scoring touchdowns. Now, everyone here can lose points for every fumble. Like if they lose the ball and the other team picks it up, they can lose 2 points. And it's not good, obviously. And the quarterbacks can lose another 2 points if they throw the ball to the other team. That's another 2 points that they lose. So there's ways, obviously, to go negative. And basically, so you draft who you want, and you obviously want the better players, and then you also have these like 6 guys that you draft additionally as on your bench. So if anyone up here gets injured, you have people down here to fill it. Now, how do you know which players are going to be good versus which players are going to be bad? Well, there's these projections. Whether it's ESPN or there's other apps called like Sleeper, Yahoo. There's various other drafting apps, but ESPN is the most commonly used. So basically, how you would know if you were in a work league, or like you're just doing it for fun. You're not, your friends pressured you into doing it because like they needed a spot. And you don't really know. Well, if you're just sitting there in the draft order and you're like, well, I don't know how to pick. You don't have to do that much research. It does it for you. Generally, you want people who have like higher projected points. Those are the guys who probably are going to score more, like who are going to be on the field more. Because like if you see like, if you compare like Calvin Ridley, let's say, who's a starter receiver, who's like going to be Jacksonville's number one receiver, versus if you compare, we'll go with Adam Thielen here, who is Carolina's pretty much number one receiver, but and I'm trying not to talk disrespect on my boy because I loved Adam Thielen, but so he's going to be on Calvin Ridley. If you want to take the side by side, he's going to be on the field more. He's probably going to get more catches, so he has a higher projected point total. Adam Thielen, while he's going to be the number one, there's a lot more questions behind that. So like, if you want to get more in depth, you can understand why the projections. But basically, even though he's also a number one, he's only projected to get 9.5 points. So you want the higher projection. Even if you like, that's just a very base understanding. Like, yes, you should know, like, if you want to get into it, and if you actually want to get into it and you're not being pushed into it, this is like the very base level understanding is that the higher the projection point totals, those are the kind of the guys you want to get on your team. Basically, how this works is that throughout the whole year, you're playing other teams. So, like, I'll pull this up. So I'm playing this team over here, and this is their lineup over here. So this little comparison just means like before it starts. It doesn't mean really anything because in the matter of the game, it just matters who scores more. But this is just showing like, hey, like right as it stands right now, my side has the higher total points. I should win. Projected, obviously. Obviously, depends if they just don't get enough points or get injured or whatever and can't score points. But projected, I'm supposed to be doing better. So basically, what happens is every week you play a new team. Well, not a new team. You play like all the 8 teams in your like group. You play all the way through week 15, and then once week 15 finishes, you then play in the playoffs. And the playoffs is you play. So this one, since there's 8 people in this league, it's going to be 4 people, the top 4. So 1 will play 4, 2 will play 3, and you'll play each other twice. So you'll play week 15, week 16 against like that first group, and if you win, you go into the championship. And then week 17 and week 18, you'll play the other winner, and that will determine the winner. Now, most fantasy leagues, I would argue, are free. But there are leagues that are for money, and a lot of leagues there's also a lot of leagues that are for money. And I'll get into those ones too. But, well, they're not really any different. You're just, like, you can either do it for free or do it for money. Or do it for a trophy, whatever you want to do. But then at the end, the winner, they get the money, they get the trophy. But, so, yeah, each week you're playing, like, someone else, and someone else is also trying to win. So, like, it kind of gives you that little competitive feeling of, like to go into the why of, like, well, I'm trying to beat this guy. I want to win. This is my team. I'm doing, like, it feels like you're doing something. And, like, with football, like, especially since you're, like, watching already, now this gives you an added bonus to cheer. Because now you're not just cheering for your team, which my team is the Vikings, obviously. But now I can cheer for Patrick Mahomes, who's on Kansas City. I can cheer for Christian McCaffrey, who's on San Fran. Like, you have more reasons to watch. You have more reasons to watch all the games, try to get all of it in. It makes it more enjoyable. It makes it more interesting to watch those games other than just, like, watching them. Like, when you're watching these games with your players involved, you're sitting there and you're cheering. You're getting more invested. It makes it more fun. So that's like what the biggest reason why a lot of people play it is because now they get more invested into more games. It's an excuse to watch more football. It's an excuse to get more invested. It's an excuse to get, to dive deeper into football. And plus, it makes you like you get to feel like a commissioner or like a team, like a general manager of a team. You get to like make all these decisions, who to start, who to sit, based on, just projected points and like or who they're going up against. So it's a lot of fun. So this is the second one I wanted to show you. This is the other, like, again, it's the same setup points wise. This is my work league, and this one, the difference here is that so it's still quarterback. This is just out of order, but it's the same thing. 2 receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end. But there's only 1 flex spot instead of the 2 like last time, the first league. And then, but there's a kicker and a defense. Now those are 2 obviously new spots. Kickers get points for every extra point that they make, which is after like a touchdown, they kick that little extra point. They get a point for that. If they kick a field goal in here between like 0 to 39 yards, it's 3 points. They kick a field goal and they make it between 40 and 49, that's 4 points. And if they make a field goal of 50 plus, it's 5 points. And anything above 60 yards, it's 6 points, which is very rare, but it can happen. But that's how the kickers make their points. And if they lose or if they miss a field goal, they lose a point. And then on defense, defenses are a little more confusing. Basically, it's based on you start out with 10 points on your defense in the beginning of the game. And basically, the simple way to look at it, the more yards they give up and the more points they give up, they slowly lose points. But they gain 2 points for interceptions and 2 points for fumbles. And they gain 1 point for sacking the quarterback, and any touchdown that they score is 6 points. So that's and then also the special teams is like for kickoff and punt return. So if they get a touchdown on the kickoff or a punt return, that applies there too, or a punt block. So there's a lot more that goes into this. It's a lot more. I would argue it's the most confusing part of all of these, but it's also the one that like a lot of people kind of don't care about because, like, you will make a lot more points up here than you will here. Very rarely do defenses like get you a huge chunk of points outside of 10, maybe 12, which isn't bad, but like you can make a lot more points up here. So I would argue, this one I'm looking at on Yahoo, is probably the more core of what you're going to see. If you just join a regular standard league and whatever app you use, this is generally the setup. Is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, a kicker, and a defense. This one over here is a little bit more special made, a little more tailored. We doctored the rules a little bit. I won't get into the rules that we doctored just because like that's homebrew essentially. So I'm just trying to give you the basics of what you would normally see. So this is like the standard fantasy experience. It just ends at the year. Basically, once the regular season's up, all this goes away, and then you just do it again next year. Now another one that people do is what's called Dynasty, or it's either called Dynasty, Legacy, Keep 'em. There's very many variations of that, but basically what this means is you get to keep your team. Now I should explain. There's 2 versions of Dynasty. You get to keep 3 every year, and then you have to give the rest back up and they redraft. Or like this one that I'm in, I get to keep my whole team that I drafted this year. And so next year I have the same team, but now I also have, like, when the new rookies come up for next season, we get to draft those rookies and put them into our team as well. So basically this is a more like experience of actually running a team, where you're like, because like trades can still happen I'll get into that more, but like there's more stuff that can happen into the summer, more stuff that can happen in the like when the like teams aren't playing. It's generally for money. This one is just another family and friends one. that we just do. We just started this year, and we're trying to do every year. We're all serious about it. We all want to do it. This is all really like, this is honestly my first experience with a dynasty, and I've always wanted to try it. So basically, it's the same thing we drafted. We just have but the difference here is, again, we still got a quarterback, we still got 2 running backs, we still got 2 receivers, we still get a tight end. But now we have 2 flex spots, again, kind of like the first league that I showed you. But now we have this, what's called a super flex. In the super flex, the only difference is, and it's only 1 spot, we can throw in a quarterback as well, which is kind of unusual. Normally that's not a thing, but this one, it's set up that way. And I couldn't tell you if this is normal or not, because this is my first time. So leave a note down in the comments for Dynasty Leagues. But so yes, so this quarterback, we get to keep him, which is normally not, you don't normally get to play 2 quarterbacks, because quarterbacks can be pretty much predominantly the highest scorer on the team. So you get 2 high scorers. And then the other change is, instead of a defense like the second team I showed you that had a defense, we have just defensive players. So you have to now know the whole team. You have to know the defense. You have to know each individual defensive player. And you get it. So, we have defensive lineman, linebacker, and defensive back. And then these are independent players. You can just put whoever you want there. They're kind of essentially like the flex spots for the defense. So this is obviously a lot more in depth, a lot more players, a lot more points to be involved. And then we have a bigger bench. So like our bench is way deeper. So then there's the injured reserve spots, and this was also in the ESPN one. But we only get 1 spot. And then this one we get 2. And basically that's if your player is put on the IR, which is injured reserve, which means they're injured and they're going to be out for a while, but they're going to come back in the season. Like, they're going to be for sure coming back within 4 to 6 weeks, maybe a little longer. You can put them here so you don't lose that player, and then fill another spot. So that way you get to have another player play for now. And then once that player is ready to play, you drop the player and then put this team off injured reserve back into your lineup. It's a way to keep a guy, because obviously it's not your fault they got hurt. So you get to keep the guy. And unless they're saying like out indefinitely, like they're out for the season, it's a way to keep the guy and have him for the rest of the season. But we only get 2 of those. Now, the other difference again is there's this taxi spot. So since this is an every year thing, if we draft rookies, which I drafted 3 of in this draft, I can just put these rookies in this what's called taxi spot. So I can just hold them there, and just I can't use them. They don't take up a spot in my inventory essentially. And then next year, with their they get to come into my spot, and now I get to have these 3 players for sure. So basically, I'm projecting for future that I'm saying basically that I don't think these guys are going to be playing this year, but I think they're going to be good next year. So I'm going to hold on to them, and I'm going to take them. And then we also have draft picks. So this is basically kind of like, it's set up essentially like the NFL, where now next year when the rookies are drafted, we have only 5 rounds, but basically depends on how you finish in the regular season. If you finish first, you pick last. If you finish last, you pick first. Obviously, to improve yourself. So, but you get all these draft picks. So, basically, what does this all mean? Like, what is the point, right? This looks like so much in-depth and knowledge. But basically what this means is you get to run a team. You get to play as if you're running an actual team. And you get to feel kind of that, excitement watching your team win with all these various players. So, you get to cheer for football. And also, like I kind of alluded to earlier, you can trade with other with other people in your league. You can like in this one, I can't do it in the other one because it ends at the end of the year. But this one, I can trade future draft picks, and that feels like a team move. Because that's what happens in teams, real NFL teams. When they want somebody, they can, send their draft picks, and they're basically screwing themselves for any like growth, but now they get a really good player. So like you are managing a team. You get to manage a team. You get to feel that. You get to experience that. And I think it's super cool, and that's why people go so hard on this, because it like you get to feel that experience of running an actual football team. So that's why a lot of people care about it, and that's why I care about it, because like it just feels cool. Like it feels cool, feels more in depth. I get to watch football and have more fun. I get to watch teams outside of the Vikings and like teams I would normally not watch. Like I'm not even like that I don't like them. Just like I wouldn't care for watching the game, or I'll just well now I'm invested because now I've got players playing, and it's just you get to have a fun time. Like yes, these leagues can get competitive, but for the most part, as long as everyone's chill, you just get it's a fun time. And so the last one and the easiest one, and I would say the one that if you want to get into fantasy, this is the one that I would argue is the best shot for you to get into it and kind of understand the rules and at least understand the scoring system, but also have catered to the fact that you don't really know what you're doing. And that's called Best Ball. Best Ball, I can't show you for some reason, like, because it's on the same app. And apparently, Sleeper doesn't have Best Ball set up for the web browser, only on the mobile. But the Best Ball format is similar to this, where the first one I showed you, where you're just drafting a team and it's going to go away at the end of the year. But the difference is the app will take care of you're taking care of your starters. Because like if they get injured, it will take someone off your bench and put it in for you. If someone is going to be on a bye week, which means that their team isn't playing that week, because every team has one bye week throughout the season. So if their players, they'll switch it out for you. So we'll take care of that stuff for you. So you don't have to touch it at all for the rest of the year. But if you want to watch it, if you want to understand the rules, if you want to understand why that app is doing what it's doing, you can look at it, you can look through it, you can comb through it, and it will teach you how to play. And I think Best Ball is a really good way for people to learn if they're going to do it by themselves, if they're not going to have people showing them how to do it. And I wish I had either known about it, I don't know if it was around when I was getting into it, wish I had known about it, or at least the very least gotten into it, because I feel like that would have been a helpful tool. So, but that's fantasy football basically boiled down. And now this also applies to pretty much any sport. There's fantasy soccer, there's fantasy baseball, there's fantasy basketball, there's even fantasy NASCAR, there's fantasy Formula One. And it's basically this, not like obviously the same rules or the same ways you get points. It depends on the sport. Soccer, it's for goals. For hockey, it's kind of the same thing. Goals scored, hits. For basketball, it's buckets, steals, assists. There's all these different ways to get points, but it's the same rules that kind of apply, where you get these, you have your starters and you have your bench, and you get to just get more involved with that sport, with whatever sport that is. So it's a cool way to just get more involved, especially if you really like a sport and you want to get more in depth and you want to know how to do that. Go to fantasy. Fantasy is a fun way. It's free. It can be free. It can be totally free the whole time you ever do it. If it's ever cost money, it's because it's on you or the league you're joining. But it can be 100% free, and it can be a lot of fun. And that's why a lot of people get into it. That's why I'm into it. I have a lot of fun doing fantasy. If you have any questions, I'm not a master, but I do tote that I've won 3 years in a row, and I'm a winner. So we win here. So that's another episode wrapped up. Hope you guys liked it, enjoyed. Please leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a like, and tell me what you think. Show me, add me on Twitter or X or whatever, and show me your team. Show me what you guys picked. I'm curious. Also, let me know if this is straight up one of the best teams you've seen this year, because I'm pretty happy about it. So, let me know. And I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.